Let me read to you a passage from the 12th chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 13 to 21. It's the Gospel for Monday of the 29th week in Ordinary Time. St. Luke writes, "Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, 'Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me.' Jesus replied, 'Man, who appointed me a judge or arbiter between you?' Then he said to them, 'Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions.' And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man produced a good crop. He thought to himself, 'What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops.' Then he said, 'This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I will say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich towards God.'" That's from Luke chapter 12, verses 13 to 21. What does it suggest to us? Well, it suggests things about the place of material possessions in life. You know, the first professorship of political economy at Oxford was established in 1825, with Nassau William Sr. as the first professor. He was followed by his old university tutor, Richard Whately, who shortly afterwards was appointed Anglican Archbishop of Dublin. That founding of the Oxford professorship we may take as symbolic of the modern rise of the discipline of economics. With its foundations in moral philosophy, political economy originally was the term for studying production, buying and selling, and their relations with law, custom and government. It developed in the 18th century as the study of the economies of states, hence political economy. Karl Marx understood history to consist of the struggle between opposing classes over the mastery of the economy. In late 19th century, the term political economy was generally replaced by the term economics, often used by those seeking to place the study of economy upon mathematical bases rather than the structural relationships of production and consumption. And so it is that economics is a principal discipline of the modern age. Business studies is a popular elective at the final level of secondary school, while economics and commerce remains ever strong at universities. The combined law economics degree has a high entrance requirement. The principal minister of government after the Prime Minister is often the Treasurer or his equivalent, and a dominant government department is the Treasury. The world pulsates with the importance of the economy, which is to say, with the importance of maximizing the availability of money and material goods for the short and the long term. An observer of the modern world would be forgiven for gaining the impression that what matters most in the lives of human beings is money-making and the possession or control of material goods. But of course, a little philosophical reflection ought dispel such a conviction, widespread though it might be. The fact is that money and material goods are manifestly ephemeral and profoundly vulnerable. Yes, indeed. If an individual's life and work has been directed towards economic goals alone, or principally, he has spent his efforts on what can and ultimately pass uncontrollably through his fingers. As it has always been said, you cannot take it with you. Because of divine revelation, we know that there is a hereafter, and we know a good deal about it. Ordinary common sense would suggest that our lives ought to be spent working for what we will be able to retain forever. Our economic interests and goals ought to be sought only within this ultimate perspective, This common sense consideration brings us to our gospel today that I read earlier, in which our Lord is asked a very practical question by a person in his audience. "Teacher," he said, "tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." How common is this problem? The matter of the will, the inheritance. The point here, though, is that our Lord uses the occasion to drive home a few simple and central points for human life. Watch out, he says. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Many have made their life to consist in the abundance of possessions, so as even to lead them into a variety of forms of theft, even on a massive scale. It has been argued that the great economic problem of 2009 was ultimately an ethical failure due to a rapacious desire for profits. A man's life does not consist simply in possessions, let alone an abundance of possessions. He must have the use of some things, but those things must be oriented towards the truly central goals of human flourishing. At the heart of the flowering of the human person is love, loving and being loved, and ultimately this is achieved in the love of God. Material goods and prosperity ought to support and assist the attainment of the love and service of God. And this applies to the life of the individual as to the life of society. It is this which a man takes with him. And if he cannot take this, he takes nothing. For all his labour and his talents, he goes from this life with everything having slipped through his fingers. If he cannot take that with him, and material goods must support that. Our Lord tells the parable of the man who built large barns for his abundant possessions. But it was all so very vulnerable. He was about to lose it all. For, as we heard, God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?" And our Lord concludes, this is how it will be with anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich towards God. Let us take heed to our Lord's words, and make the love and service of God the great goal of every day, with the business of material security and prosperity serving that one all-important aim.